Hello everyone, we're continuing our series of shows, and today our lesson is about the method of studying Kabbalah. And I'd like to start out with the purpose of the studies. When a person comes and studies the wisdom of Kabbalah, he needs to understand the goal. As I understand, the goal is, as defined by Kabbalah itself, its connection with the studied material in order to change your inner qualities, in order to become like the Creator. The revelation of the Creator to man in our world. That is a sheerly Kabbalistic definition. This is how Bala Sulam explains it. I mean, the purpose of the lesson itself. The purpose of the lesson itself. Of course, it depends on the lesson itself. There are different kinds of lessons, but actually, it tunes a person. But there needs to be some kind of connection with the material itself. Right, the material itself arranges a person for him to come closer to the revelation of the Creator, for him to somehow really tune himself like a musical instrument. That you tune it before you start playing. The same way a person needs to tune himself to the revelation of the Creator. Does it depend on the person or on what's written in the book? Is there some kind of a wondrous force in the book? There is, but not in the book itself, between the pages, between the letters. How then? It's in how the text influences the person, because the text is written by a Kabbalist, and it doesn't matter whether it's handwritten or printed. It's not about that. The thing is that the person who wrote it, in it, expressed his inner attainments. We're nonetheless talking about a person who feels, who attains the upper world, who attains the Creator, and thus what he puts on paper is related to his attainment. And thus, when we read these texts, whether we want it or not, these texts, they influence us, they work on us. And the so-called light, this influence upon us, gradually changes us. Suppose I read some dramatic story. It also influences me. Right, but it influences you sheerly psychologically. But I can cry, I can laugh. Right, but here you might not even laugh or cry. You might read and not understand anything. But the text nonetheless influences you, and gradually you will start feeling that something's happening in you. How can I say that, yes, something happened to me? What's supposed to happen? You start feeling that in this text and in you exist some inner forces, some inner submerged streams that draw you to something, that direct you in a special way, arrange in a special way your feelings and thoughts, and suddenly you change a bit, maybe more multifaceted, more goal-oriented in a specific way. And so this how appears the influence of Kabbalistic literature, Kabbalistic sources on a person. Well, we'll also talk about the benefits of the study of Kabbalah, how do they influence, what's the benefit from them, but first I'd like to ask, what is the subject that the wisdom of Kabbalah studies? What does it teach? I know that it teaches about creation, the structure of the worlds. Kabbalah teaches about the source of our creation, the Creator, simply the higher force of nature, that through all the other forces, secondary and tertiary forces, etc., works on us and creates in us a sense of reality. And this higher force of nature is, we can say, the only subject of study. Meaning it's not abstract, but on yourself. On yourself. It can't be any other way. We can't study or learn something abstract because only in our world it seems to us that it's possible. But actually, here, first and foremost, we discover that we're studying that which the Creator is building, creating in us. Our attainment, revelation, sensation of the world. When we study the wisdom of Kabbalah, he develops us towards revealing him. Meaning, what I study is how he influences me. Right. But it's subjective. Of course it is. You study, I study, but the results are the same. What data material is Kabbalah founded on? But the data that man has discovered in the world. Meaning each has his own creator? Yeah, you can say that, but they're all similar. They all work under the same law. We exist in one nature. Nature influences us equally. It varies a bit here and there, of course, but usually, like the force of gravity, everyone feels it equally, right? Same with the Creator in Kabbalah. But everyone on themselves. Yes, even though that I feel these influences individually, but they have their set of laws, how they're implemented, formulas, etc. We learn all these things, and we try to use it all like physics in our world. Okay, so the next topic is the process of studying the wisdom of Kabbalah. I'll say a few postulates now, and you'll say if it's correct or not. So, an important part of the study of the wisdom of Kabbalah is the teacher, of course. The role of the teacher, as I understand it. First of all, who is the teacher? He who got his knowledge from a known Kabbalist. He teaches according to the source texts. He does not draw attention to himself. And the last is that he directs us to the revelation of the Creator. All true. Don't even know what to add to that. Well, of course, we can open up each of these items, but actually it's all correct. So I want to ask about the interaction between the student and the teacher. The interaction depends on the student, not on the teacher. The teacher can help the student in everything to the benefit of the student, obviously. The teacher completely disconnects himself from any interference in the inner world of the student because he needs to raise him, educate him in such a way that the student himself will reach attainment independently. And so on the one hand, there is constant concern with the development of the student and, so to speak, taking care of the student. And on the other hand, the teacher always keeps himself at a certain distance from the student in order to give the student a feeling of freedom of will, of action, decision, etc. Because no one can replace the student's, how to put it, his independent advancement. What's the difference between a teacher in the wisdom of Kabbalah and other disciplines? The teacher in the wisdom of Kabbalah, he doesn't teach that much as he gives advice as to how, by changing himself, the student attains what he needs to attain. And what he attains, the student attains it, not the teacher. He follows a certain path, constantly developing his inner qualities and soul, attaining greater and greater revelation of the Creator in that. And this is surely his own particular attainment. Meaning the teacher here is merely an exterior source that aids. The second factor in the process of the study are the Kabbalistic books. Let's go over that for a moment. And in particular, books by the greatest Kabbalist of the 20th century, Bala Sulam. He wrote articles, he wrote letters, meaning articles for the broad public, letters to students, works like the study of the 10 Sfirot, and different introductions. If you can explain a bit. A Kabbalist writes on different levels, depending on the goal that he sees in front of him. If his purpose is the revelation of the wisdom to the masses, which is necessary in our time, well, even before that, from the beginning of the 20th century, then we see how Bala Sulam publicized the wisdom of Kabbalah, prepared it for the masses, in newspapers even. Right. Before him, no one wrote articles? No. Before that, only very serious books were written, and for a very limited circle of students. But he wrote it for everyone, practically. Right, like his newspaper. Now, another thing is that letters. What are the letters? Letters were written by everyone and always. That's to students. It's to a very limited circle of people that are closely connected with him. He was somewhere at a distance, physical distance from them, and he wrote them letters. in which he somehow expressed his thoughts, using the fact that maybe next to them he wrote some special forms of development and different methods of how can the students come closer between them and the Creator. Also, Kabbalists, they write notes for themselves. Yeah, many. Kabbalists write a lot for themselves. Today less, because today there's an enormous amount of options to write in different ways and styles, and for everyone and everything. So, a Kabbalist today has no reason to write some special letters or appeals. It's all expressed in either the way he writes it down in the virtual realm, or in a book, or even in some movies, lectures that are recorded, etc. Today, the recording of information is so abundant and accessible to every Kabbalist that he doesn't need to write it all down and collect it someplace. What has the strongest impact on a person? Video lectures, audio, read books? I can't say. It has such a different impact, and the sources are so different that I think that it's impossible to replace the printed text, which is nonetheless the basis of everything. As I understand, even scenarios are first written, and only then they're filmed, and then they're edited, etc. So, nonetheless, one way or another, everything stems from the presentation of thoughts and feelings on paper. So I think that that's the foundation, and one way or another, I dedicate most of my time to reading printed text and also answer in written text. For the broader masses, possibly different recorded video materials, using also music and other elements, maybe even some kind of acting, where people play out different scenes, trying to depict different feelings and relations through which they try to reveal the Creator. The main work written by Bala Sulam, the study of the 10 Sfirot, what did he write it for? Because there are the books of the Ari, there's the Zohar. The thing is that such a book is a fundamental book for the study of the spiritual realm. The thing is that the wisdom of Kabbalah consists of two parts: the depiction of the system of creation and how to reveal the system, attain it. So the depiction of the system of creation is the foundation of such books as The Tree of Life or the study of the 10 Sfirot and the preface to the Wisdom of Kabbalah, and how to attain creation. For that you already have letters, articles, different notes, articles like Shamati, etc. But these are two very different streams of information. An emotional, spiritual type of information and a scientific, physical one. When a person studies a certain discipline, at first he attains the general picture, then he makes an analysis of different details, and then he already connects all of his knowledge together. This is the same with us now. For example, now we have a 30-minute show. So, we don't get stuck on specific spiritual states, but we talk about it in general. The next course will be more detailed, etc. Does it happen the same way in the wisdom of Kabbalah, or does it matter how you study, what you study? No, by no means. The wisdom of Kabbalah is studied according to the same system left for us by our students who have written these main sources. When people come to study, they need to study the preface to the wisdom of Kabbalah on the one hand. That's about how the system of creation is built. And in parallel to that, they need to also study how to attain the system of creation. Meaning, that part of attainment in its turn also consists of two parts. Articles about man, freedom of will, society, development of humanity, etc. on the one hand. On the other hand, about a person's particular attainment. And so, there are two main streams here, which is the physics and the feeling, the attainment. And each of these two parts consists of subparts too. The study of the wisdom of Kabbalah, as Kabbalists themselves write, is not about the accumulation of knowledge. How is that possible? Well, because the accumulation of knowledge doesn't give anything, even to the contrary. First of all, throughout many generations, true Kabbalists, not only that they did not try to remember anything, but they tried to forget, so that every day anew they will grasp this knowledge, perceive it differently, feel it differently in their new emotions and thoughts. And thus, no one here needs to aspire for this knowledge to remain in me, these feelings, because they will only kind of shackle me, limit me. Therefore, real Kabbalists even aspired to forget everything. On the other hand, the wisdom of Kabbalah, at least Bala Sulam has a very scientific approach. He says that you need to study by heart all the definitions, and every day you can study them anew and understand them differently. He even gave a dictionary for Kabbalistic terms, of course, and all that only in order to attain, not to accumulate in yourself, but to attain. So if a person does not understand when he studies in the process of the learning, then it's not important. Not at all. Because we're not studying physics, we're not accumulating material in ourselves. We need to prepare ourselves for the attainment, perception of the highest possible material in our feelings. So a student perceives himself as a laboratory, right, like a sensor that needs to feel the spiritual realm and the Creator. And yourself as the object of research, that you research yourself. Right, the more I advance toward it, change, and come to revealing this attainment. Okay, so there are the three factors, necessary factors. That's the role of the teacher, the Kabbalistic books, and a collective of like-minded people. Meaning, you need to have a group. Meaning that you can't study Kabbalah by yourself. It's very difficult, and it's not sufficient in order to attain the goal. Why? Because you need to develop in yourself qualities that are beyond the boundaries of your ego, and that you can do only by training in a group. When you train with others and on these feelings of yours that you have with others, your revelation of qualities, relations, connections, you develop in yourself the quality of bestowal up to the point of love toward others, and in that measure you come closer to the Creator and start feeling Him in the measure of the equivalence of form between your qualities and His qualities are bestowal and fulfillment. Meaning it's impossible for you to discover your ego, this natural substance, if there's no interaction with other people. Right, it's very difficult. But every person has his family around him, people at work, or does it have to be? No, it's not enough. These have to be people that are headed toward the same goal with you so that you'll help each other. So there needs to be a reaction from them too. My attitude toward them is not enough. A group of students are people who understand why are they together and between themselves build a special system of interaction which as a result is revealed in them as the Creator. And afterwards it's possible to apply it to all of humanity? Yes, we'll be obliged to pass it on to all of humanity as well. Okay, so we can move on to the concluding part, I think the most important for a man. We'll talk a bit about the benefits from studying the wisdom of Kabbalah. The process is clear, but what's the benefit? The benefit from studying the wisdom of Kabbalah is very broad and multifaceted. First of all, we see that humanity is constantly headed toward war, constant problems, people are willing to degrade, humiliate, and annihilate one another. Kabbalah says the opposite, that we need to help each other to rise above our nature, that is, if wishes our mutual annihilation, pushing us to be against one another. But really, man needs to rise above it and aspire for mutual connection. So the wisdom of Kabbalah is a method for social connection. This is A. B. The wisdom of Kabbalah helps to restore the correct form of the family and the relations inside the family in our time. It's completely unseen yet because we're uncorrected, but gradually, after a generation or even two will go by and people will start implementing this method, no longer for studying and circulating the wisdom, but for using it inside themselves, then in it they will discover a tremendous potential for changing themselves, the family, society, government, and humanity gradually, from yourself outwards. So the family cell will not disappear, in your opinion? Because there exist such tendencies nowadays. Right. Today it's going through a serious crisis, and the birth of children, and the building of a family, etc., etc. It is a transitional phase, and in the measure to which the wisdom of Kabbalah will become more and more revealed, people will see that with its help, they will be able to structure the right family, society, government, and world. This is what our egoistic evolution is leading us to, revealing to us all the problems of our ego. And thus, we have no other method or possibility left but to correct ourselves in that way and format ourselves in differently. I hope that the next generation will already be a bit different. At least our generation is in the gist of this transitional, difficult phase, where, on the one hand, those that are studying are still studying and are not yet in attainment, and the others don't understand what they're doing altogether and what do they need it for. And we're in a kind of birth of this new society, new family, new world. And of course, today, we can't see anywhere, anyhow, these positive events. The thing is that if we pay attention to any birth, first of all, it's kind of death. A seed needs to rot in the ground, and only then a small part, informative part that's left of it, starts growing and gives us something new. And that's how it is on the still, vegetative, animate, and human nature. So now we're going through a phase where we're rotting, as if annihilating our past, destroying our past. But all of that needs to grow into the sprouts of the correct future, and we will start correctly growing. I took a few excerpts, postulates from your book that show the benefit of the study of the wisdom of Kabbalah. A person governs his fate. Well, many spiritual practices talk about it, but it's expressed in what? That a person governs his fate. Is it possible to govern one's fate? A person governs his personal fate, and in the social, economical, political, governmental, etc. forms, in any form as well. If we understand that everything comes from the upper light, is set by the upper light, and only in order to develop us, to come to feel it, to come to reveal it inside ourselves and become like it, then in the measure to which we ourselves will make an effort to become like that higher force, in that measure we will advance in a good way toward it. And all of its influences over us will not perceive by us as negative, but as positive. We won't perceive it as something painful that obliges us to change, but something that we want, that comes in a good way. It all depends on our attitude toward the forces that develop us, our relation to them. Can we say that a Kabbalist knows what things he can change in his life and what can't he? Right. And therefore he doesn't engage in what he can change. He engages completely in everything. The thing is that in principle, he needs to be connected and to participate absolutely in all actions, manifestations of the forces of nature, and each of their manifestations. There are such events that he can't change. So he knows in advance that this he can, and this he can't, and what he can't is also an action because he holds himself back. Meaning it's also an active action, just like an active action in and of itself is. But he clearly knows from the entire range, from all the opportunities of his engagement in himself, nature, society, family, etc., etc., he knows how to act. How, in the current moment, to correctly accumulate all those forces. How to correctly combine them. And to already push that combination, so to speak, into motion. But again, despite all of that, we live in a world that is in need of serious correction. Each of us, on the way, goes through serious shatterings. Each of us is under very serious pressure. We, inside ourselves, need to go through all the different possible mistakes. As it says that there is no righteous who did not sin before he became righteous, and only by going through all of these different states can we come and achieve the state of being righteous. Righteous isn't someone who became righteous. It's someone who sinned a lot, but today understands all the reasons and consequences of everything that happened with him, and in relation to the future, in the measure to which he learned, he can already be righteous. Meaning it can't be that a person will be good and kind and correct and wise, etc., unless previously he was the opposite of it and only in the measure to which he was wrong. Today he can be right. And last, you write in your book that a person becomes invulnerable because he rises above his ego. He loses any fear, he's no longer afraid about himself, he becomes invulnerable. In the measure to which he's connected with the upper force that works on him, he simply adheres to the upper force, and it is no longer the outcomes are important for him. There's only one desired outcome, which is to remain in complete connection, called adhesion, dvikut, with the upper force. So he can justify any actions of the Creator? This is his purpose, yes. Because really, if we're talking about the Creator as the absolute good, then in the measure to which a person corrects himself, or is corrected, he justifies the actions of the Creator. So meaning even when something happens to him, no matter what happens, this is what it all comes down to. What does correction comes down to? Now, you can only imagine how it looks from the outside, the influence of the Creator over the righteous, where the Creator works on him with completely negative, some kind of negative forces, and the righteous corrects the feeling of these negative forces into positive, and to the contrary, through them loves the Creator and wants to only come closer to him. He justifies only the actions of the Creator in relation to himself or in relation to other people too. In relation to others, because he's connected with them, and he starts perceiving their states as his own. And you write that a person who studies Kabbalah, he identifies the general tendency of the development of the world, different formations, evolutional processes. In short, he's connected with the entire world and sees where is it all headed. Is it truly so? He can see the future of the world. He sees the tendencies, and the future of the world, that already depends on the measure in which the Creator explicitly shows it to him in order to make him his conductor, conduit. So he both understands all the processes and also takes interest in them. It depends on the root of the soul. There are people that take interest in it, those that don't, people that are interested in teaching, circulating, or deepening into the material itself. These are different roots of the soul. There are different types of Kabbalists. But still, it's a very broad wisdom that encompasses the entire world, and those that are engaged in it feel a tremendous, eternal, whole and complete fulfillment. So Kabbalah is from the word to receive in Hebrew. Right, how to receive the entire creation, including the Creator. Thank you very much. Today we talked about the method for the study of the wisdom of Kabbalah, and next time we'll continue with a new topic, the history of Kabbalah.